Hey everybody, welcome to another AIWC class with Mira Gold. Tonight we're going to show you a little bit of a shortcut. She's created this awesome GPT and it's going to help make fine tunes so much easier. Without further ado, let's go, Mira Gold.
Oh, we're going to have lots of fun. Now, the first thing that I do want to point out is that I've played around with some of these GPTs, and I found that when I was playing with ChatGPT in version 4.0, I'd say maybe about 70% of the time, steps 1 through 5 actually adhered and behaved. But then the rest of the time, it went off the rail a little bit. So whenever I decided, you know what, let me dial it back a bit, and I went back to GPT-4, and oddly enough, 4 is actually doing better when it comes to giving it instructions, like maybe with prompting it with any type of code, JSON, or giving it complex instructions to follow. Now, I do have a step 6 in the process that I kept trying to work, but it has a 2-step process in it. And I noticed that 4.0, anytime I used that step of either like the 2-part process in step 5 or in step 6, it would give me something else. I'd say a good, I don't know, 50% of the time, it was like flipping a coin in the air. So if you're going to use these GPTs, make sure that you are on version 4, at least until they get all the glitches out of 4.0. Now, I did find out that 4.0 actually wrote some pretty decent prose with one of the prompts that I had fed it. And if we have time, then maybe we'll play with that too in a little bit. But for the project that we're working on today, we are using GPT-4, and make sure again that you have 4 appear at the top. Now, with these GPTs, if you have not pulled in any of the GPTs that I'm using today, you're going to want to go in and explore them here on this screen, which is chatgpt.com/GPTs. You can search by my name.
Mira Gold, you went to that left-hand side where it says Explore GPTs and you just clicked on that, right? Down at the bottom. Okay. So we
Yeah,
click on Explore GPTs and then we put your name in that field.
mhm,
Okay,
that
cool.
is correct.
Thank you.
So under Mira Gold, whenever I type that in, and you can even do that, like you can search for Lynn's, you can search for Angie's, you can search for Nicole's GPTs and other people that you know have GPTs out there. So searching for mine, the ones that we're going to work on today are the ones that say Mira Gold's fine tuning prompt, and you'll find step 1, you'll find a step 2, and you will find a 3, 4, 5, and 6. So those are the ones that we're going to play with today. I do want to tell you, if you have not used a GPT and you want to stack them in the same thread, the way that you do that is you actually have to pull them up one at a time and actually use them. Anytime that I go in, even if I create it myself, I have to use it once to be able to pull it in. And what do I mean by pull it in? I can hit the at symbol, and now any of the ones that I created a single thread on prior, I can pull in here. So again, if you have not used one of these for the very first time that you use it, you have to go in, go to Explore GPTs, type in Mira Gold, find the prompt step that you're looking for, pull it in, and you're going to have to do that. So that means that you're going to have to create 6 different threads and just pull something in. And then I recommend that you create a brand new chat so that you can start pulling these in one by one. So I'm going to go ahead and demo this for step 1, just so that you see what I'm talking about. I'm going to
So
click on step 1.
you're going to show us how to pull it in, like you keep talking about pulling it in.
I am.
Show us. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Here, this is a step you're going to take, Explore GPTs. This is for the first time that you use it. Explore GPTs. You're going to pull in, you're going to search, pull in the prompt that you want. I actually dumped my PDF here Now, if you don't want to use your whole book, you don't have to. You can either use your story beats. Maybe you want to use this to create some very specific information for a fine tune on a project that you're working on. You can use story beats. I do highly recommend that if you're doing a fine tune on, say, 10 to 30 chapters, that you load those specific chapters that you're wanting to fine tune in here. And I say that because it's going to look at the content that you have loaded and say you don't want the title of your book on there. I don't care if people see the title of this book because I've generated this online. If I have a body of work that I don't want people to know the name, or if I feel uncomfortable uploading that to, say, chat, and I want to strip my name out of there or the title, maybe I want to change my characters' names. I can do all of that in a Word document. I can save that Word document and I can either drag my Word document over or I can use my PDF. Now, why do I use a PDF? I use a PDF because this document is about 60,000 words. It's just shy under 59,000 words, so we'll just round up to 60,000 words. And I notice that sometimes with a Word document, when I'm somewhere between, say, 60,000 words and 100,000 words, I notice that chat plays better with a PDF, and I can actually load a 98,000 word manuscript as long as it's a PDF. If I try to do that in a Word document, sometimes it'll kick it back. So if you have a longer body you want to put in there, try it as a PDF. One of the things that I do advise you to do is get into the habit of telling it to proceed with step one.
So I could just use your GPT that you have, this step one T prompt, my book that I've got, and just put in exactly what you're putting, and that will begin the process specifically for my book, right?
If you look at the content here that's highlighted, it says this is the first step in the fine-tuning process. At least for gathering your information, you want to paste your story, your excerpt, your prose samples, any information that you're wanting to do. And again, if you're going to paste all of your stuff in your fine tune all chapters, I do recommend that you put that content in here. And let me show you why. But again, you'll have a little bit of feedback here. And right here, I do type in to proceed with step one. And the reason why I do this is because once we start to piggyback all of them, it makes it easier for me to do a control find and just look for step one, step two, step three, step four. And it makes it easier for me to extract information to put into my spreadsheet later. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here.
Okay. And while that's doing its thing, can I ask you another question?
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned something about putting beats instead of putting the book.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that? What reason, what will that create that's different, and why would you want to do that?
Say I wanted to set up a fine tune that shows beats to beats,
Okay.
then I might want to load my polished beats, not the beats that are subpar, that I'm saying, no, I don't want it to read like the normal Claude or the normal Chat GPT 3.5 beats. I want it to read like these beats that I have scrubbed and are polished. Now, again, the reason why I would do beats is if I am fine tuning a model that I can actually write beats in. And I have fine tuned a couple of models like that that allow me to be able to generate beats out on Playground.
Okay, so instead of creating prose, we're talking about elevating our beats then, right?
Yeah, you can do a fine tune on prose generation for generating beats. You can do one, we actually have one that's prose to prose. Our user prompt would have some of the pre-edited content. It might be something that maybe I generated on, say, Pseudo-Write or within Novel Crafter or even on Claude or even straight up Chat GPT. And maybe it has all that AIism in it. I wanted to do a prose to prose fine tune, but today's is actually just a prose for us to be able to generate some pretty solid prose that matches our voice. So if you take a look at this, actually gives you the plot structure, the characterization, the settings, some world building information, themes, and underlying messages. It gives me narrative voice, point of view, language and style, emotional engagement. If there are other aspects of your writing that you want covered, you can always input that information down here, or you could even say something like, are there other story elements of writing you can provide on this concept? And you can also add that content if you want to.
So essentially, we're asking it to break down the book so that it can then go back in later on, once we've completed all the steps, towards building the next book.
That is correct. Now,
Okay.
where am I going to put this content? Let me show you. I have a spreadsheet, and on my spreadsheet, I have put in some very basic information, and I will actually put out something on the comment section of the video that will say column A, and then everything here under column A will be on that specific comment. And then where it says column B for the user prompt, I'll put that information there as well, just so that you know where you're putting content. So if you take a look at this, we know that we have step 1, 2, 3, and then we can also do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we have 4. Let's do 4 up here. And we are doing 5 here. So we have 1, 2, we have 3, we have 4, 5, and we are going to add one more. So optional are going to be step 1 and step 6. And I'll explain why in just a little bit. So again, this information will be provided for you.
Wait, what, when you say this information will be provided for you, I'm so glad you said that. What I'm want to know is, are you saying that you will provide this spreadsheet with exactly where everything goes, somewhere that I can find it and I can use it so I don't have to guess it or try to freeze the screen and copy it? Or will you be providing this wonderful little spreadsheet type of thing?
On YouTube, I can't post a file out there,
Okay.
but I can give you the breakdown of what each column has. But
Okay.
if you're a member of the Discord group, then yeah, we could probably make this spreadsheet available somewhere for you.
Okay, so all I got to do is go to your YouTube right there, the
Mhm.
AIWC, and get the link to the Discord, join the Discord, which is free, which is just another server where you can go and chat and talk and cover information. I
100%.
would I'd find that there, so that can help me so I don't have to recreate it myself from scratch.
Yeah, definitely. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out, do you notice where I have this information right here?
Yes.
This is like a generic starter for me. I know that I really like the word gritty whenever I am writing a prompt, and it seems to work for a lot of the genres that I write in. The reason why I'm providing this also is to give you an idea of some of the information that I put in there. What you see here is the blank template that I use over and over again. And this is also what Cece uses over and over again when she's creating fine tunes.
Yes, it
So
is.
we can provide this for you.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we have step 1. Now, remember whenever I said if you have not pulled these in already, that you're going to need to go back up to ChatGPT, create a new thread. Then you would have to come over here and go to Mira and look for prompt 2. And then you would need to start another chat. And you would have to do that for all 6 of them because they haven't made it to where you can pull them all in without at least doing it one time. So once you do all 6 of them at least one time in individual threads, then you'll be able to piggyback them later on.
And you'll show us what that means when you say piggyback. And now, real quick question, that number 1 that you just worked on, where's that at? Is that in the sidebar there where it says Bayou Quest? Where am I going to
The
find the one?
Bayou, it
Okay,
is. And let me show you. I just put step 2 here, and I can rename this one. This is right here. This one is step 1.
perfect.
And this one right here is going to be step 2.
Awesome. So they're all going to be right there in the sidebar, y'all.
Mhm. But keep in mind that after you pull them in this first time, then you'll be able to start piggybacking them. And again, I'll show you what that means. And what is the benefit? Now, you could pull them all in individually, and you have to do that the first time. But there is a benefit to actually piggybacking them because you keep everything in one thread. But this first time, you are going to have to do it this way. Let's do step 2. I'm going to come back up, create a new one. And remember, now I have to look for step 3.
Okay, that's easy enough. We can do that.
I have to hit more.
All right.
Here's my 3, 4. There's number 5.
Okay. Start chat.
And
Okay.
yep, I'm going to do the same thing. Now notice I am dragging my file over each time.
Every time we bring the PDF over. Okay, cool. And
Every time.
we tell it to do step 3. Okay. You just copied and paste that phrase there and just changed the numbering, didn't you? Just to make life easier?
That is all I did. I am all about copy paste.
Hey, I'm down with that. Down with that.
Now, on step 3, one of the things that I want to point out to you is depending on what your preference is. With step 3, this is a step where you can either load your fine tune with non-JSON, which is what you see right here, or you can load it with your JSON. I prefer the JSON. Now, I know that there are several people, including CC, prefers non-JSON. So if you like the JSON or the non-JSON and say the first time you do it, it generates it in JSON, but you want non-JSON, make sure you're telling it what you're wanting. So it generated in non-JSON. So I like the JSON. So I'm just going to say, do it again in JSON.
And I
And this
like
is
to,
only for step 3.
yeah, and I like to read it in non-JSON, but I recognize the value of using it in JSON when I don't want to say communicating with the machine, but working in the tech part like this.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So wait, so step 1 was the evaluation of the novel, right? So what is step
Yes.
2 doing? What is step 2 prompt doing?
So let me rename this and we'll go back in there and take a look at it and I'll show you what it's doing. So let me rename 3.
Perfect.
So we know step 1 was doing that evaluation. This
Okay.
is the first evaluation of the book. It's just a literary analysis.
Okay.
Step 2, when we go in and we look at what step 2 is doing, this one is actually giving me some additional information. It is a generic literary evaluation framework. It is in JSON. Now, what this is going to do is take some of these literary elements and it is going to wrap them with your story. As you can see, it has information about the bayou. It has information about the period appropriate descriptors. It has text to let you know what her dialogue sounds like. So I know exactly how this character speaks.
Okay.
And then 3 is actually going to give me more on the writing style. And what's interesting about step 3 is that it not only gives me the writing style, as you can see here, my book was first person suspense. It gives me the emotional depth. It does give me a little bit of information about the dialogue, but then it also goes into the story element and the setting, supernatural elements, romantic subplots. It's giving a breakdown. It also gives an example of writing style so that the LLM can take a look at that. And then I am asking for it in JSON.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. And this step 3, pay attention to this one because this is the same prompt that you're going to want to play with whenever you go into Playground. This will become part of your system prompt every time you start prompting.
Okay.
So I'm going to put a little note right here that says that this will be part of your system prompt later on. Now, since we've already done step 1, 2, and 3, we're just going to keep exploring this process. Let's go in, let's find number 4. And in a little bit, we are going to piggyback all of these.
I just love what you've done with the GPTs, but more importantly, with the fine tuning and the way you've taken it and you've had it distill down all the important parts of a story stylistically, so to speak, so that when it's time to create the next book, it can mimic the style and the voice of the story. This was a lot of work, y'all. I kid you not. She put a lot into this.
It followed the detailed information inside of my GPT to give me this little prompt here. And we're actually going to use this. We're going to use this little prompt. Now, this is step 4. And this is going to be style. We want some information on style. Now, keep in mind, it has some information that when you stack everything, it's all going to stay together. Now, I do like to keep this in a specific area on the spreadsheet, and I will show you where that is in just a moment. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. And again, once you pull these in, you will never have to do this again. You'll just be able to piggyback them after this. So we have 4. We want to go and find number 5. There's number 5. And let's go grab. I don't think I changed it to 4 here. 4.0 might not adhere. And if you find yourself in 4.0, just go back in and do it with 4.
Do we also, oh, we need to change it from step 1 to,
Yeah. You need to update the step number.
Oh, yeah.
but that's all right. I guess you can, it won't be easy to find with your method of your search, but we'll know where it is.
So I'm just going to name it here. Now, where this comes into play is when you're piggybacking. That becomes so important.
So how are we gonna fix that? Just remember or
Oh,
what?
you can't fix it here, but
Nope.
I'm going to show you in a single thread in a minute.
You're awesome.
We're going to do one more because I want to bring in number 6.
Yeah.
And again, after you do this one time, all of them have been brought in. You won't have to do this anymore.
Mira Gold, if I were doing this and I forgot, just like you did, because I got carried away, I got a phone call or something, and I forgot to rename that step 1 to step 3 or 4. There's nothing that says I couldn't delete that chat completely and do that step all over and do it correctly. Is that correct?
That's correct. But remember, you have the steps right here, so you know which one it is.
True,
But
you said when
we're
it
not going to
piggybacks
use
on-
these. We're not going to use these.
Okay,
I'm going to show you how to piggyback it all in one thread, but we have to pull them in first.
okay, I see what you're doing.
Because they are not actively available to you to do the little @ symbol to pull them in until you've actually physically put them in one of your threads.
So you have to have used them once for them to be available forevermore, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Now, just like step 3 with a system prompt, you can use this one for a system prompt, or you can come in and use step 6, A and B, as a system prompt as well. So you decide which one you like better. There are times when I might use just 3, but then there are times when I really like this 2-step process whenever I'm using maybe something in paranormal shifter romance, or even if I am using something real detailed with maybe the sci-fi alien romance. Maybe I have specific fated mate rituals and I have it layered into my book, then sometimes I find that the step 6A and 6B do better as my system prompt. So again, you can use 3 as a system prompt on Playground, or you can use this one.
Have you ever tried using both? I'm just curious.
I have, but keep in mind the system prompt here is very similar to this one that you see right here. The only really big difference between 3 and 6 is going to be some of the information up here. Now, see where it says write a gritty first person and it says past tense narrative and it gives you information about the female lead, incorporating dialogue. Looking at that, now take a look at my generic template right here. It gives you the same, almost similar information, but in case you want to be very specific about your characters. Now, you could just delete this and use what pulls up in step 6, or you can use both and just get really detailed about who your characters are.
Okay.
So now let me show you what I'm talking about whenever I say to piggyback. Now, you have steps 1 through 6. If you have gone through this process, you have pulled everything in. So now we're going to bring up a new chat. I'm going to make sure that I am in 4, because right now, like I said, 4.0 doesn't really adhere very well to following instructions. So we're staying with 4. Now is where we have some fun. Now, all I have to do, since they're pulled in, is hit the @ And right now, all I have to do is scroll, find it, and look right there. It tells you exactly which one you are working on. So I am going to proceed with step 1 of the GPT, following all instructions. And remember how I had to load my document all 6 times right here? Guess what? I only have to do it once now because I can bring everything and keep it in one thread. So let me show you what that looks like. So again, it's going to pull the plot structure, the characterization, the setting, the world, the themes. It's going to give some information about the narrative voice, the point of view, language, emotional engagement. So it's going to pull all this information again. And remember, I'm going to load all 6 steps here. So that means that I am going to want to make sure that I am renaming these. Like what Cece was saying, I need to make sure that I'm renaming this, and I will show you why in just a moment. So see how I have step 2 here? I'm going to want to make sure that I am naming content. So let's do our @ I'm going to look for step 2. I'm going to paste my step 2 right here, my instruction here. And if you don't know what step you're on, always look right here, because when you pull it in, you will see the step that you're in right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and tell it to go. And there it is. It is generating for me. I'm going to do the same thing once you pull them in. Once you've done this and you've pulled them in, I recommend that you go back in and piggyback them in one thread because each prompt will build upon the next. So now we're going to do, now I can ask it to do it in non-JSON. If you prefer non-JSON, then ask it to do it again in non-JSON, just so that you see what that will look like. And while that is doing that, I'm going to hit this again, and I am going to start looking for this. So I have my 3. Now, one of the things that I ran into, some of these are really long, and if you have a lot of detail in your book that it needs to capture in some of these, you may have to hit the continue button here. So make sure that you look and that this is actually finished generating before you move on to your next step. So here, I'm going to change this to 3. And again, if you don't know what step you're on, always look right here. You know exactly what step you're in. And remember earlier, I said that the reason why you want to put your steps in there is because once you have 6 steps in there, you can just enter here and say step 1. And you know that it's going to take you all the way up to step 1. And it makes it easy to find those steps. So that's one of the reasons why I do that, so that I can find my steps easier.
And I guess and the reason you need to find these steps easier is because you've got to put them into that spreadsheet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying go ahead and number them to make it easier for you. So now I'm going to bring in number 4. See how much easier it is whenever you have already activated all of them and you now have access to be able to piggyback them. It makes it so much easier.
I remember when we used to have to do it one bit at a time, and it was
Yeah.
so repetitive. And then you discovered GPTs, thank goodness. You opened your mind
Yeah.
to those. And then of all the great discoveries, you figured out the whole piggybacking thing.
I didn't figure this out. I was actually out on the OpenAI Discord and I asked, hey, is there a way that we can piggyback these? And somebody sent me a link, and sure enough, people had been doing it for a few months, and I don't know, I missed the memo somewhere. It was great that the community there was so open to assisting and said, yeah, here's how you do it. So I actually go out to that Discord sometimes to ask questions.
Thank goodness you
So
did.
here's my step 4. Now, remember my step 4 over here in a minute. I'm going to show you the difference between these two. Remember, my style on step 4 here was subpar over here on the sidebar. But I noticed that whenever I am stacking them and I'm piggybacking all of them in the same thread, it gives me better content whenever it comes to the actual style, the genre, the voice. So this is so much better than what was given prior. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next prompt, which is number 5. And I'm going to change this step to 5. So here on number 5, remember 5 should be a 2-part system. So we have write a scene from a paranormal. Now, I want you keep in mind, chat can sometimes have a hiccup. So always know that step 5 is going to have 2 parts.
So when he misses one part, you've got to prompt him, remind him, or nudge him to do that again so that he
Yep.
can give you the second one.
See how it has the prompt for style of voice and the genre and subgenre. So you want to make sure that for your step 5, that it's giving you this. Now, if it doesn't, is it a catastrophe? No, because you're still going to have some of that information here that that you can put in manually, but a lot of this information, it can actually create it here for you. So that's why I'm saying make sure that step 5 gives you both of the prompts. Now, I guess I could have done one of them as a step 5, the other one is a step 6, and I might do that at some point. But I do understand that 4.0 is supposed to get better and be able to do multi-steps. But for now, just make sure that you're reprompting on this step 5 to make sure that it gives you everything that it should. So let's go ahead and do that and I'm going to go to 6. And let's go ahead and tell it that this is step 6. And there we go. 6 is also a 2-step process. Now, notice how it's writing prose. We don't want it to write prose. So this is where we have some of the hiccup. So I'm glad that it did that. It's letting me know that it's a first person, but it started to write a scene. And that is one of the issues that I do see with the system sometimes. Tell it again. No. Where are my prompts? Now again, it is given it to me in non-JSON, but if I want it in JSON, I can then prompt it to give it to me in JSON. And what's funny about that is that earlier in this step 6, it gave it to me in JSON without the additional prompting. So now I want it in JSON. And whether you use it in JSON or in non-JSON is completely up to you. So here it's letting me know that this is to generate prose for a novel. Now, if this is for a novella, then you can always change that to novella, or if it's for a short story, then you would just change this once you copy it to short story, novella, whatever it is that you are writing at the time.
But now, since
This one is a novel.
I got a question for you, Mary. Since we're not really telling it how many beats yet or how long or anything, whether you put the word novel, novella, or story, or even short story, really doesn't matter, right? At this stage, or does it? Why would it matter?
So the reason why it might matter inside of your spreadsheet is because the spreadsheet where this is going on B, remember, I have my system prompt and I have my user prompt. The user prompt is going to identify that the chapters that I'm going to put over here in column C, that they are part of a novel. So if I have a whole bunch of short stories and I'm putting one short story per line or here or per row on C, if I have 20 short stories, then I'm not going to want to put a prompt in here that says that it is a novel when it's a short story.
So if it's like an anthology of stories, I guess you're saying.
Then you can
Okay.
say short story anthology.
Okay.
Or if you are doing a book series like for the Hellwise, your Hellwise girl, for
Right.
her, we say that it's a novel and it's even a novel series.
Yeah, because it has 8 books. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, yeah. So now I'm going to come across and we're going to take a look at these now. Now, remember whenever I said how important it was to be able to do this find? This is why. If I want to look for step 1, it takes me straight to it. If I want to look for step 4, it takes me straight to it without me having to scroll and look for it. And again, let me tell you, I was going nuts the other day trying to find my steps. So let me show you what we're going to do here now. I am going to go over, grab my document, and I'm going to want to put this content in there. So let me pull this down.
So you're saying you want to
And
put the content you just generated in the
Mhm.
from the GPT into your spreadsheet now.
I do. I most definitely do.
Cool. Okay.
So let's go ahead and play with this. I know that I have to put step 4 right here, but before I do that, do you see this right here for prose that fits what genre is this? So my genre would be romance, and my subgenre would be PNR, shifter, and I
Now,
could even make that dark romance or dark PNR shifter.
does it know what PNR is? You and I were writers, we work in these genres. We know, but does it know automatically? Can we take that for granted? I'm just wondering.
I've not had an issue with it. You can definitely spell it out, but if you go into chat and you ask, what is PNR? It will tell you what PNR is in literature, that it is paranormal romance. But you can definitely spell that out if you prefer.
So if we wanted to, we could also check ourselves just to make sure that, ask chat, are you aware of PNR, what PNR is? That way we know that when the AI is working, it can figure that out, right?
So here, let's say, what is PNR in fiction?
Okay, cool.
And I get to regenerate. There you go. Paranormal
Ex-
romance.
Excellent. So if you guys ever have any doubt about whether the AI knows what your genre is, if you use the shorthand or acronyms, um, just ask it.
Yep. So let's go back and let's take a look at this spreadsheet. So I want step 4 here. So let me take a look at what I have. So I've already got step 4. I have a little section here. So it says based on the file, and it gives me the 40-word prompt here. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy this content. And I'm going to go back into my spreadsheet. And I am going to paste that in there. So I'm going to grab that, paste it in there, and there you have it. So let me go ahead and go to the next one so that y'all can actually see what I'm pasting in here. So it has write a suspense romance scene set in, and then it gives you the location. Now, remember whenever I was saying that we want to write what the genre is, and it's a romance, dark PNR shifter. Now we need to give it a voice. So what voice do we want to give this? My girl's name is Raven. So I'm going to name this Raven, but I'm going to name this Raven. Do we want to name her Raven 10? What do we want to name her?
Well, are you using Raven 10 for this one? Will
I
it be
think I'm going to use Raven 10 for this one because I want to use 10 epochs on this.
good? Let's tell them what we mean. So this is Raven, the voice from that story. And the 10 is because you're going to ask the AI to create 10 epochs. So my understanding of epochs is that's just simply 10 calls for it to analyze, right? Something of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm naming it this just so that I know who I have put in this spreadsheet. Now, I could put down here to write a gritty, and then I say first person. So I could say write a first person here. And then I could say past tense. And I have a POV narrative from, and then I could give descriptors. Maybe she is sassy. Maybe she is snarky. So you could put in as many descriptors as you want, and you can say that she's the female lead, or from A, then you can say what the male is. Maybe he is an alpha shifter. And we're going to call him a gator shifter. And you can put down that maybe he is domineering, maybe he is stoic, he could be no nonsense.
Grumpy, rough. Any of those would work.
Up in your face.
Now, so you're putting her or him, but with each beat, you would tell it whether it's her or whether it's him. Here, you're just leaving it open for it to receive more directions from you or from whoever the writer is on each specific beat or scene as to whose POV it should be from, right? Okay.
Now, why am I doing this?
You gonna tell us?
Because I'm doing this because when the fine tuning is taking place, it is going to be taking a look at the information that I have in my system prompt. And then it's going to look at what's in the user prompt. Then it's going to look at the chapter that's in the C section. And I will show you that in just a minute, but let's go ahead and finish doing this. You can add any additional content you want here, or you could completely take this out if you wanted to and just add the information that printed in chat. I tend to like to keep this one over and over again because I'm pretty, I guess I'm a little OCD whenever it comes to doing stuff like that. Now, I do like it to stay, I like the tone raw, explicit, dark humor. If this is for erotica, I would put down that it was for erotica. If your character does not curse, do not say that they curse. This is sarcasm, dark humor, and snark. And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's put the snark here. And I am going to state for this one, my character sometimes curses. Characters curse sometimes. Now, let's go out and get number 5. So remember, here is my number 5. Right here, I have, remember it only gave me one of the 2 prompts. So now I'm going to come down here and get both of my prompts.
So you copy both of them. Okay.
And I'm going to put them right here. And the reason why I said you may not need this is if this is a repeat of the same thing you have up here. But you can put that content here. And then we're going to go to step 3. So let's go find step 3. And let's find that step. Now, why am I not coming down here and hitting the copy button? Let me show you why. So if I come in here and I want to paste that right here, let me show you what happens. Do you see how it has these extra characters here? I don't want them inside of my spreadsheet. And again, I don't want to copy it from here to put them in. So what I'm going to do is go and copy it straight like this.
So basically copy what you need, not the extra commentary, not the extra symbols and all that. Gotcha.
So you want to make sure that you get everything. Notice how it gives an example. So I'm going to take all of that. But whenever I come back in here, and notice how it says writing style is characterized by, that's down where I had my number 3. Make sure that you double click in there. If you don't, then it's going to try to put all that content on individual lines. So now all of my information is in here for column A. So now let's take a look at B. What do we need for B? We've already put this step in here. Remember, we had a step up here. We had step 4. Now I need 2, 1, and 6. Let's go find number 2. Now, number 2 is a JSON. So I'm going to take that JSON. I copied it. And I'm going to come right here to number 2, and I'm going to paste that in here. Now that I'm here, I'm just going to arrow down. And do you see where I have for step 1 and step 6? So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my step 1. And step 1 is optional. You don't necessarily need to use step 1, but I like having step 1 in there.
Yeah, it seems like the
So
more information you can give it, the better off it is, right?
most definitely. Now, you can use step 1. I found it doesn't matter whether it's a JSON or just non-JSON. So I have been putting step 1 in here just as non-JSON. Remember, I already have a JSON up here, up above. Now I'm going to go ahead and scroll down because I want to put my other prompt in here. So see where I have step 1 and 6. So I just put 1. That's what's up here. Now I'm going to go and get step 6. So let's go ahead and grab 6. And again, if Cece was doing this and she wanted the non-JSON, then she would use this one. I prefer using the JSON, so I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom and I'm going to grab the JSON prompt. And I'm going to put that right here. And now I have all that content inside of my spreadsheet. Now, one of the things that I tend to do is I like to see all of my rows. So I'm going to drag this up now that I have the information that I need. And one of the things to keep in mind, all this information that's here, this information, I'm going to repeat for every single one of my chapters because this information is actually what covers my book as a whole.
Okay, wait a minute. I want to make sure I've got this straight. What you're telling me, so each row, you're going to need one of these rows for each chapter.
You can be
Oh.
very specific. If you wanted to run the same thing that we did, step 1 through 6, for every
Okay.
single chapter, you could
Okay.
definitely do that. But I've run a test and I did that. And
Yeah.
I compared that one to another framework that I did. And I
Yeah.
found that there really wasn't a difference in the prose. You can definitely try it. But the prompt that I did here actually covers the whole book.
Okay, so
So
you don't put a full chapter, or you do put a full chapter, or you put a full book in that
So
row?
I'm going right here in this row, I'm going to put a single chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. But this information here is going to be the same for chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to copy these and paste them all the way down on rows A and B.
Okay.
Because it covers the same content. Now,
Right. Okay.
that means that I am going to grab, here, let me grab my content. Give me just a minute.
All right.
I'm pulling up my Word document.
The Word document of the manuscript that
Yes.
this belongs to? Okay.
I'm going to pull that up real quick.
Okay. I'm so glad you're going through this line by line. I'm telling you. I know everybody watching it is. And speaking of that, y'all, I know that we don't use some of the technical terms that some of you that might be developers know and use. And I'm sorry, we're just a couple of writers just trying to the best we can to figure out how to use this system to generate the kind of prose and the kind of stories that would make us happy. So forgive us when we don't use the exact terminology that you might use. I think Miss Lynn knows what I'm talking about because she's from that field.
But
definitely.
developers should learn to use the language of their customers, in which case it's the writers here.
That's a good point too, Miss Lynn.
So we have our spreadsheet, right? Now we need to put our chapter in here. I'm going to grab my Word document, and it keeps on changing. Give me just a minute here. I'm going to pull this over. Grab the right one.
Microsoft Word likes to play tricks on us sometimes.
And it keeps, remember the problem that I was having earlier with it reverting back?
Yeah, with the login situation, yeah.
Yeah, it keeps reverting back.
What about your PDF? Couldn't you copy and paste out of that? Would that give you a problem? And we don't have to see you doing the copy and the paste. You just tell us it's chapter 1 and you put chapter 1 in there.
I wanted to show chapter 1 because I wanted to show them how we can actually collapse content.
Oh, yeah, with the head. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
Okay,
the day you
so
discovered that. I remember how you were so thrilled with that.
I was like so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, we have Mira and Mira. Sorry, guys. So let me go ahead and come in here. Now, if I do a control find and I look for my chapters, I can see my chapters here, right? One of the things that I found is I don't want to have to highlight this and highlight all the way down to the end of the chapter. So
Right.
I found that as long as I was putting my content in here and I was setting my chapter heading, my chapter 1 as header 1 and Raven as my header 2, I
Mhm.
found, I found that all I have to do is collapse it. Chapter 1, chapter 2, I can do my chapter 3, 4, and I recommend that you do this because you can collapse all of these, and it actually works great if you're going to pull something into Vellum or even into Atticus or other places. Having the headers helps. It does take a little bit of time, and as you can see, it is time consuming to do these. And I'm going to just collapse all of them at once because I'm going to show you how you can just copy it and pull it over. And just got a few more. Sorry, this one has 30 or 31 chapters. I forget.
You're doing just fine. It's a good shortcut for folks to know.
Okay, so all of my chapters are here. What I'm going to want to do is go all the way back up to chapter 1. I'm going to drag this over just a little bit. And right here, I'm just going to drag my spreadsheet a little bit. And I'm just going to highlight all of chapter 1. And whenever I do that, make sure you double click in here. See my cursor blinking? Make sure you do that so that it puts the whole chapter inside there. And there's my chapter 1. Now, if I come here and I just say chapter and I don't get the number 2 in there, and I come to put it in here, be very careful because look, it didn't put my chapter in there. Make sure that you're highlighting the whole thing so that you can get the whole chapter.
And if you have your cursor a little bit to the left of the word chapter, where it forms a different arrow that points the other way, then you can just highlight the whole thing.
Now I'm just double clicking on it. Whenever I hit it, I just double click and then copy and paste it. Did I get 4? I don't remember which one I got. Now I like to have my chapters so that I can see which chapter I'm on.
Yes, and make sure it's formatted correctly when you guys try to do this. If you don't have your headings done correctly, it won't work for you correctly.
Yeah. And the other thing about this, make sure that your em dashes are the way that you want them. Make sure that your ellipses are the way that you want them, your formatting. because the AI is going to take a look at that. Sorry, guys. Just wanting to show you the whole process.
So we
Now, I wish I could
copy,
highlight and paste it all in there, but it doesn't let you.
right. So you just got to go through and put in every chapter. At least we don't have to try to highlight every single word of a chapter and put it in there. This makes it much easier. But yes, it is a little bit time consuming, but it won't take but maybe 3 to 4 minutes, I think.
And the thing about it is that I already set my headers this way because an editor taught me to do this a long time ago. I don't know what her name was.
Nobody does.
That would be Cece. Let me tell y'all, I was so green when I started working with Cece. Nobody had ever seen my manuscript. And I had, what was it, like 4 manuscripts that I submitted to that publisher, Cece. And she was the first one to read it. I didn't even let my family read my content.
You mean the publisher was the first one to read it?
The publisher was the first one.
She signed you, so that means you must have had something going for you. So
I had just held on to everything, let me tell you. One of my manuscripts, no joke, I held on to it. I guess it was, Amelia wasn't even born yet. And it wasn't until she was about 15, 16 that I finally submitted my very first novel that I had written before she was born. It just sat in my closet forever.
yeah, but now you write like a beast.
I do enjoy writing. It's a
You
whole
do it
other
well.
world.
You do it well, girl. I wish I'd have taught myself as well as you claim I taught you.
Oh, let me tell you, you taught me well.
Paula says beast mode. Yeah, that sums her up. She's in beast mode all the time. Which reminds me, you guys, if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask, put it in chat, unmute yourself, whatever works for you. We don't want, yes, this is going to go on the YouTube. While you're here right now and you got questions, we're here for you. So don't be afraid to ask.
I'm sorry that this stuff takes time. And the reason why we're showing every single step, and I know it's a long video, but we want y'all to actually see the whole process. I didn't want to show you just, oh, here you're going to copy one chapter and then then all of a sudden I bring up a spreadsheet that has all of them already filled in. I didn't want to do that to you guys. I want y'all to see the actual process. And again, I apologize. It is pretty long when we do it this way.
But it's the only way to do it, and it's the only way to get good results that I know of.
Yeah. But that way, it's not like a 10-minute video that tells you how to do it. This shows you the length of time and what goes into it, at least on our process. There's so many different processes out there, and I encourage you, watch different videos, see what works for you. So let me go ahead and I'm going to enlarge this because I want to show y'all something. I am going to bring this up just a little bit. And notice how I have all my chapters. I'm going to go ahead and make these white. And I'm going to grab these two and I'm going to take them all the way down to 31. And remember what we did inside of Chat GPT 4, not 4.0, but in 4 was for the whole book. Now, to Cece's point, if you wanted to do it per chapter, then you would need to have a single thread for every single chapter. And then you would do chapter 1, and then you would go through all 6 steps. Chapter 2, all 6 steps. You can definitely do that. And like I said, I've played with that. But I'm telling you, I found that there really wasn't a difference for me. Now, you might find something different. Now, we are going to go in and actually have this generate. We're going to take it from this Excel and have it converted into a JSONL. And the reason why I need to do a little bit of cleanup is I need to take out this first row. And I'm going to do that because the JSONL doesn't want to see this. And we don't want system prompt, user prompt, and assistant prompt to become part of the actual JSONL because we don't want it to train on just this empty line. So we want it to actually train on all the content that we have here. And I am going to take the bold off. The bold was just there for me to actually be able to see. Now, as just while I was pasting stuff. Now notice how 31 and our chapter 31 is here. So we are going to save this. This is Raven 10. And next, our very next step is to take this. I'm going to save it real quick. And I pulled it off screen because I have some of my personal work on there that I want to keep personal and private. So I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick. So give me just a minute to save it.
And so basically that first column and second column, everything in the first column is identical to the one before it or the one after it. And the same thing goes to the second column, right?
So all of column A all the way down is the same. All of column B is the same all the way down.
Okay.
Now let me go and find, I need to find that other website real quick because I did not have that one up. And then I will log into that.
It's okay. We're not going anywhere.
So now that I have that link, let me just pull that link over here. This is that link that y'all have probably seen before, and it's one that my firstborn actually created because Cece and I were having a really hard time trying to convert our Excel into a JSONL. With this, it is so great because all I have to do is take this and upload and choose my file. Now I am going to drag this information over and I'm going to choose my file on the other side. Let me make sure there's nothing on there that comes up that I don't want to show.
So this one was what her firstborn created because we were really struggling to find a JSONL converter, weren't we?
We were struggling so much. So notice how I have Raven 10 right here. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to open it. So I have Raven 10 here. I'm going to hit my download.
Yep.
My download just went up here. Now notice how my download comes out as output JSONL. I am going to pull that and I'm going to want to rename this the same thing as Raven 10.
If you don't rename it, you guys, you're going to have a bunch of identical ones that you're going to have to then go through one by one to figure out which one it is.
Yes.
So rename it immediately.
Oh, definitely. Make sure that you're renaming that. So I just renamed my file. And next step, we are so close now, guys. Sorry about this.
1 second, Mira. So what you just did is you created the JSONL from all that information, all those steps, all those GPTs that you're going to then put into the OpenAI? Is that what we're doing now?
Yes. So now I am going to, if you look, we're going to OpenAI, platform.openai.com. I'm in the playground. So I need to go, right now I'm in playground, but I need to go to fine tuning. So I'm going to click my fine tune and I'm going to hit create. But before I do that, I do want to show y'all an image of something. So give me just a minute here. I'm going to pull up my usage. And I've been doing a couple of different fine tunes, as you'll see here. I've done a couple of different fine tunes over the last 24 hours. I want to show you this before I actually generate. So Cece, will you take down that 3772?
3772. Yes, ma'am, I got it.
Okay, because we're going to see how much this fine tune is going to run. Now, this one is going to run a little bit more because I want to do 8 I have one with 8 epochs, but I want to do one with 10. And remember what Cece was saying earlier, that with the 10, that means it's going to process the file 10 times. The data set is going to have, the fine tune is going to go through the manuscript 10 times, every single chapter 10 times. So let's go ahead and hit create. The base model that I want is this one right here, GPT 3.5 Turbo 1106. Now, we did try the 0125, didn't like it. We have not tried any of the others. We have strictly stayed with 1106. We are on a wait list for GPT-4, but keep in mind that once you're able to generate them with GPT-4, that has a higher token cost than 3.5. So I'm going to click 3.5. You see it's 1106 here. And I can drag and drop my file. So let me bring my file back over.
So that's the JSONL you just created, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So that is my JSONL. So I'm over here and I'm going to take my JSONL. You can't put your Excel in there. It has to be a JSONL. I'm going to drop that. And I don't do anything here because I'm not loading a validation data. Now, if I was loading validation, then say if I have 60,000 words, or let's simplify that. If I had a 100,000 word novel that I had as my fine tune that I loaded right here, then for my data set, I would take maybe the first few chapters of book 2, and I would want them to total anywhere from 10,000 to 11,000 words. So I'd probably take the first, I don't know, 10 chapters of book 2, and I would use that as my validation data, and I would upload that file as well. And I have not done that yet because I like what I'm getting out of just this specific training data on this file. At some point, we will play with the validation, but we're not doing that today. Now, I do recommend that you add a little title here. I'm going to call this one Raven 10 because we're going to do 10 epochs. Now, I am going to leave my seeds as random. I'm going to leave my batch size as auto, my learning rate multiplier. I'm going to leave that auto as well. But the one that I am going to indicate is the epoch, and I am going to set that to 10. You don't have to set it to 10 if you don't want to. I actually like a lot of my fine tunes that are set to a batch of 8 that runs through the manuscript 8 times. Again, play with it and find what works for you. I'm going to go ahead and create this one, and it is going to take a little while to generate.
Well, I got a question for you while that's generating.
Sure.
If you did 8 epochs versus 10 epochs, 8 would be cheaper. Is that correct?
That is correct. Let's see. We had what, 31 chapters? So you would take that and you would do 31 times 8. And that is how many steps that the actual fine tune would go to. So again, that would be 31 times 8. So when the training loss starts to come up, we'll be able to see metrics. And you see where it says here, step? It would step through 248 steps before it hit completion. That would be with 8 epochs. But in this case, because I'm doing 31 chapters or lines times 10, we are going to send this through 310 steps.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So here's our epoch. Our batch size is 1. Our multiplier is 2. It gave me this seed rate right here. And we know that our job ID is here. It is still processing. It gave me a create at time. And one thing to keep in mind is that in a little bit, as soon as it starts generating some of the training loss metrics, it will give us an estimated completion date. or time, should I say. So let's see what that comes up with here shortly. So are there any questions while we're waiting for this to process? And again, this can take generally anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. The 8-book one that I did, wow, that one took an hour.
There's no
So any
question.
thoughts?
There's no questions in chat, but I was going to ask the folks who are here if they wanted to put anything in there or unmute themselves and ask, or even ask about anything. Chances are we're going to end up having to trim this down because no one wants to hear us talking silliness in case we go in that direction. Don't be worried if you ask something that's off topic, or if you have a question about anything else, don't hesitate to bring it up, because if it takes a while, like I said, we're going to kill this part of the video.
Yeah, so it started at 9:15 Central Standard Time. Do you see the estimated finish is 9:28?
Have
So
you
10
seen a
minutes.
different cost between the 8 epoch and 10 epoch?
I do, because you're stepping through more steps. So remember the other one at the 31 times 8 was 240 steps, and at the 31 times 10, that is 310 steps. And what do I mean by steps? Our training loss shows us our steps. Let me bring this down a bit. Do you see this line here? This line lets me know step 1 was right here flush. This step right here was number 16. This one way over here is number 28. We are already at 29 right here. We're going to go through 310 steps. So that means the fine tune is, or the process is looking at each one of my chapters 10 times. So we're getting a look at what the training loss is for each one. So once I hit 31 here, so once it hit 31 here, this would probably be chapter 1 again at 32. So if we take a look at that, 32 is at 1.8293. And if I go down and look at number 1 was 1.88. So the numbers are going to fluctuate because it is beginning to learn and look at it. Now, keep in mind, the process is looking at the system prompt, all that information that we gathered, all of that information is being looked at. Now we're already at step 50. And these are actually pretty good numbers. And we did start at 1.8, but take a look. It went up to 2.2, and then it has gone down to 1.4. At some point, I'm predicting that this is probably going to go down to 0.0 or even 0.1 or something like that, or 0.9. Because it's going to keep going down lower and lower on some of these as it's training. So let's take a look at our line. So you can see where we started here with chapter 1, and it was 1.88. And then here we have lower numbers. Now, as it's going through the steps, you'll see it begin to fluctuate and change because it has to make room as other steps are gone through. It will show us what that graph looks like. Now, again, if we had done the validation, we would have had the training loss on the main file, and then we would have had a validation loss on the extra chapters from like book 2. We would have had training loss data here that would have pulled up, and then there would have been full validation loss between the two. We have not done that yet, but I am really happy with what we're getting just with this step. I think that the validation loss and the full validation, I think I might like that for some of the editing ones where we're doing prose to prose. I think I might want to play with that validation and the full validation with that specific LLM. So we are already at step 80, and we're talking, remember, we're going up to 310. Now, Cappy, if you think about Cappy, and Cappy is only 12 lines, with Cappy being only 12 lines, you would say 12 times 10, so 120. That I want to say was coming in, what, about $2 to $3, I believe.
Think so.
But yeah.
Now, some people don't know who Cappy is.
Oh, Cappy is one of our fine tunes that we just love, and she can be just totally psychotic.
Or
Cappy
Nympho.
he is a novella, is one of the novellas that I wrote, and it is a sci-fi alien shifter. And in that book, Cappy is the female and the male is Ranger. And I then named my fine tune for running it on that book. We named it Cappy. And just like with Cece's, with her 8-book series, her girl's name is Hellwise. So, that's what we called that one.
And we change the names to protect the innocent sometimes, and the not so innocent.
Her real name is not Cappy, but Cappy is what she became.
And my character's name is not Hellwise, but I'm sorry. Was that you, Miss Lynn? Did I just interrupt you?
Nope, me, Paula. Question for you. Is Cappy the one where you said that something happened where it went nuts and started ripping the spines out of
Yes.
other characters?
Cappy just goes berserk. And I have lots of LLMs here, and see my failures?
Yeah.
Now, why do I have failures? I have failures here because the bulk of these are all failures because some of my books have sexual content. So I had to pull out some sexual content or make some variations to some of the words that were triggering the system so that it wouldn't kick it out because of sexual content or violence. Because I have a couple of these in here that have some horror or violence. And it's funny because it'll kick out the sexual content before it will kick out the violence when you're fine tuning.
So can you just pick it up from where you left off? If it does that, like if it fails, or do you have to rerun it from the beginning?
So I have to run it again. And one of the cool things about OpenAI is that if it fails, it does not charge you. It only charges you if it passes, which is phenomenal. Now, let me tell you what we did find out. So I loaded Cappy into ChatGPT-4 and I said, hey, I fine-tuned this and I'm trying to fine-tune another body of work, but it keeps failing for sexual content. Can you tell me what the percentage of sexual tension and sexual content that Cappy has across the whole novel? So Cappy came back, and keep in mind, she is snarky. There's a lot of sexual tension in there, but it said that the type of sexual content that would trigger was only at 7.9%. And so that passed. But when I ran my Dark Mafia through it, it was above 10%. I think it was like a 10.1 or 10.2% that failed. So yeah, I'm saying I try to keep everything under a 7.9% now for sexual content. And there are times when I have to change words, get creative with those trigger words that will trigger the LLM. I will change those up. And we could have a nice discussion about that in Discord if people are curious.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
They don't really tell you what's going to trigger. It's like a hit or miss thing. You have to learn by example.
I have a list. Find us in Discord and I'll send you a list. At least the list that I have.
All right, that would be great. Thank you.
So we're at 231, step number 231. Now, remember when I said that it would go below 1 point? See, these right here have gone below. So far, 0.5 is, see, there's a 0.9, 0.6, 0.8, 0.5, I think is it right now. There's a 0.6 early on. That's pretty cool that it had one early on there.
And what's the significance of that? Just to, because I'm going to point my crit partner to this video, and I'd like her to look at it. She's not technical, and I'm having trouble explaining the technical side of things to her.
So you want to see some training loss. And that means if everything was flat and there wasn't much of a training loss, say, and instead of it being squiggled like it is right now, if there really wasn't much of a variation in between what was being trained, if there wasn't a training loss, then it means that it really wasn't learning and wasn't fine tuning. So what it's doing is it's taking the Prose information that I have in the assistant prompt, which is column C, along with A and B, and it's telling the system, hey, this is, take a look at the way that this person wants to train their LLM. It's taking my information and saying, okay, this is the prose that she wants generated. And it's taking a look at the type of prose that it would generate or the predictive indexing that the LLM might use today. And in comparison, what it would do with my training data and my prose. We definitely want to see that variation, because that means that the LLM is going to follow closer to what my style is.
Nice. Okay.
Now, remember, I'm not a coder. I am not a techie software engineer type person. Cece and I and Lynn and Nicole, all of us are writers, but we're trying to tread water in an area where we don't really have a background. So we've done a lot of reading, and we always welcome people who do have a software engineering background. We're like, hey, let's have a round table sometime. I believe a gentleman actually, or somebody commented on one of the videos, the most recent one that we did, and was a software engineer, and we went back and forth talking a little bit, and that person was saying, wow, it's really cool to see how somebody that's not a software engineer, how they use GPT and fine tune. And well, from a writer's perspective, we are so curious how maybe a software developer or somebody within that realm that might be coding, how they look at things, because I think that would be a really cool conversation to see how we prompt on both sides.
You guys are, to me, with being able to put all of this together and have it focus on prose and writing and being able to fine tune it for your voice and creating your own LLM, to me that's just amazing, because it's not something that I would have even considered until I started. I found Pseudowrite first, and then you guys, and I've learned from Lynn and Nicole and John.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now I'm learning from you guys. It's like a completely different world that it's opened up for me.
Cece and I started with Pseudowrite. Actually, we started with chat when it was version 3 and then 3.5. And then we found out about Pseudowrite and we're like, woo. So we played in there, and we were in there before Story Engine was even a thing. And it was so cool to watch the birth of Story Engine, and then it became Story Bible. But we prompt the heck out of Pseudowrite just to get the kind of content that we wanted. And we got pretty good prose. But now with the fine tune, man, if they would open up Pseudowrite and let me use one of my fine tunes and let me attach my API key, man, I would be so there, and I'd start using Story Engine again or Story Bible again. But right now they don't have the capability for me to pull in my fine tune. And I know that they do some of their, they don't call it fine tuning, they call it match my style. I've tried working with them on the match my style, and I know that they're still perfecting that and having to make changes to the system, but their version of match my style provided me with a plugin, but I didn't want to generate content and then turn around and have to use a plugin to make my voice sound the way that I wanted it. And with Playground, I can fine tune and have it generate without me having to generate twice.
Right.
So I hope that makes sense.
absolutely. I learned from John because John has his plugins open so that I was like, all right, what's this about? And I just went in and I started dorking around with it and used Chat GPT to ask questions like, how can I make this prompt do what I need it to do? And then I've been messing around with, oh, looks JSON as well, pulling in some of that stuff to create my prompts and my story information. I actually think I have one of your books that I'm pretty sure it was your book that had the JSON in it. Was it you had the prompts for romance and the thrillers?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's one of my books. Yeah.
Yeah, I have both of those. So that's what it was. Yeah. Okay. So I started messing around with the JSON because of your book. And then I started playing around with Playground with that. And then I was bouncing back and forth trying to get my plugin to do what I was able to do on Playground. And I got it working okay. But I really wanted to see what else you were specifically doing with Playground because you seem to have so much success with it.
And it comes through trial and error. And keep in mind, and I say this to anyone, anytime there is an update to say Anthropic or OpenAI, anybody or any company whose platform uses those, they're going to have some hiccups. So if you're a pseudo-write user and you love using GPT 4 or 3.5, or if you like to use Opus and maybe Claude is down, at any point, pseudo-write has no control over it if something goes down or if there's been an update, and it leaves them to have to scramble and make changes on the back end. Because we've already noticed that if ChatGPT just released 4.0, and it's great in some ways, and other ways we're having to learn to reprompt. Can you imagine a company who is building some of their product on, say, OpenAI or on OpenRouter or on Anthropic, and every time they have an update, it impacts their platform, and then their users are like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with the platform? Why can't I generate? Then their developers are scrambling to try and make a change and make sure that everything is flowing. But until OpenAI or OpenRouter or Anthropic or even Bedrock through Amazon, until those actually settle down and go back to their form of normalcy, you're going to have hiccups. And even when they are running really well, there's always going to be a hiccup. There can be some weird glitches because it's so early in AI. So this just finished, and let's take a look. We know that this is SKCU, and I want to take a look at how that generates. Now, Raven is not as up in your face as, say, Cappy is. So I'm curious to see how Raven will actually generate content. So I've never clicked it from here before. That's cool. Let's click. Oh, what? Do you see that? Why does it have two? Oh, that is so weird. I don't think I like that. Why are there two? Do you see that, Cece?
I see it.
Is it a comparison? Like they want to do side by side
Yeah,
comparison?
that is so weird.
Just don't know
I don't
why
want
it's
to do
doing
that.
Open up a new one.
I'm going to go back and look. Oh, this is what I was going to do. Remember, we were at 3772, right?
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
it's had time to process the cost on this one yet. Has it? I think
Let's
there's
see.
usually a little delay, isn't there? Try it and see. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, look, 3772. And this is what just generated 1707 or
So
1707. So remember, the reason why it was 17 to generate this specific fine tune is because it was 310 steps. Now, if you want to do it for half that, then you would do 5 epochs, and it would be half of the 17. And again, my manuscript for this one was just a hair under 60,000 words. But in addition to the 60,000 words, we also had all the content that was repeated in column A and column B. So all of that word count added to it. So I'm willing to bet that it probably hit over 100,000 words with all the different prompting. So we're at 1707. So it went ahead and loaded. Let's play with it so you can see how much it actually costs to generate a chapter. And I'm going to go to Playground. That one is so weird. Let's go to Playground from here. And do we remember what that was? That fine tune is SKCU. So let's go to Playground. We went from fine tune to Playground. We're going to look for it right here. Let's scroll down and help me look for this, CC.
Credit Union, CU, Credit Union, somewhere in here.
And that's the Cappy. Here it is, right here. Cappy, but we need the other. So this is Cappy 10.
We don't want Cappy. We want Raven 10.
We want Raven, so it should be around here somewhere. Did you see Raven?
Is it alphabetic?
It gets really scrambled. Oh, here it is. Raven 10. Here it is. CU.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you have multiples. Now, do you see why I put in the name so that I can scroll through it to find? So this is the information here. Now, remember whenever I said that you wanted to hold on to your system prompt?
Yeah.
Because there's real specific information that you're going to want to use from there. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to grab something from my system prompt. So let's see. This is my step 6 and it has all of my Prose information. I'm going to copy this and I'm actually going to go to my Playground and that becomes part of my system prompt right here. Now I can also go and grab, tell you what I put inside of my prompt. So I'm going to go and grab that top section. Remember where I had that information here to write in Raven's voice, and I have this content here. I'm going to grab these right off of A, and I'm going to put them here with my system prompt. I can get it in the right place. And I'm going to hit Shift Enter so that I can paste that in there. So there I have right in the Romance and Dark PNR Shifter voice. Now, I'm telling it to do Raven 10, but what if I didn't want to use it for a PNR shifter? What if I wanted to use it for a thriller? Then I would just go in and I would have all this content kind of set up similar, but I would change the information in here and make it for a thriller. So remember how I was applying that content here to be able to generate prose for a novel, that step 6 that I went in to wrap my story content in? You could do the same thing to your beats. So say you have a whole bunch of beats and you want to wrap your story content from your beats into a framework, you would just go in and you could actually use this to do that with. Now, you could also use, and I'm still playing with it, but you could also use, let's see, I have this one that's Mira Gold's writing style, voice, and genre. I've been playing with this one. And this one you could actually load your beats into as well. But you want to specify whether it's first or third. You want to give it a tense. You want to give it additional information. You can put your beats in there, a synopsis. You can put your whole brain dump in there if you want to. And like the video that we did prior to this, where we fleshed out a whole concept from premise all the way to story beats, you could then take and piggyback and bring this into something that you have fleshed out from beginning to end. You could take this and ask it to wrap all that content into this framework. And then you would just come here and use it right here. You would just take it from chat and bring it into your system prompt. Hopefully that helps. Now, I would also put my character list and my world building down here as well. And I would put that all in my system prompt. So let me pull something up. Let me find a shifter. Trying to remember.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to be asking her where she's getting all this world building and everything from to put into.
Do you remember when I generated that other concept? Where was it? Like the enchanted hearts, whenever I was doing those, and we went through the whole process. Like, here's my format.
Yep.
This is my step 6. And here are my chapter story beats.
Yeah.
So remember a couple of days ago when I took it and I went from my romance fiction plot creator and I created the plot. I went in and set up the synopsis, evaluated it, did the character creation, the world building, and I did all of that here. That information is what I would actually look for. So I could do world building.
So basically, if I'm hearing you correctly, when we're creating the premise for the series or the book, and we ask it to give us settings and world building and lore and all the other stuff that's necessary, you're just simply going to extract it from this area where we asked it to create it in the beginning through chat.
So I like this one. Look at how tiny that little bar is, because this is the one that we were playing with, and we created this one in the last video. And now I can come in and I can take that. I'm going to put my world building in here. Let's leave a little space there so I can put my character list. Here's all of my world building. So you see, it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go in and I want my character list.
Now, I've got my first book and gone through all of this process and creating this awesome fine tune. And I don't have a world building list or anything because I actually wrote this book back in the day when we did everything without AI. Could I take that whole manuscript and drop it into chat or drop it into, say, Claude Opus and ask it to create the world building, the setting, the character list for me?
You could ask it to do all of that information for you. And I apologize. I am scrolling really quick here because I'm looking for the characters and I just found them right here. So I'm going to grab my characters, but yes, you could throw all of that stuff in there. Now I could take all this. I could take my narrative devices. I don't feel that I need all of that because that should be wrapped up inside of my content, but I could take my list and again, put as much or as little as you want to inside. I'm doing all this content just so that you can see how much it will cost. Now, again, I have my prompt, my system prompt, I have my main character, my sub characters, and I have all my world building in here. And if I go in and I copy all of this and I look at, let's see, I'm going to add another space here. I'm going to drag this over to show you. So in my system prompt, let's see how big my system prompt is. So my system prompt is, okay, did not put it in there. Oh, thank you for not saving my work. Are you down, Atticus? Let's restart it. Gotta love it.
Technology.
Huh?
Technology.
Yeah, Atticus is not showing. There's more than one way to skin a cat, right? Not that I want to skin a cat, but
I know. I say that phrase a lot, but it just puts these terrible images in my head.
so 2693, so almost 2,700 words. And that's just my system prompt, right? Okay, so let me throw that over. And now I need my beats, right? So I need to go find some beats. So let's go back down. Let's do chapter 1. And I don't want the first one. I think if I remember correctly, I preferred the other chapter 1. So
It looks like instead of spaces, it puts colons too, if that helps you any.
I see that. Chapter 1, colon. Okay, there's the second one. What is the next one? Oh, let's do this. Oh, this is where it started trying to write prose. Okay, so I'm going to grab this information, but before I do that, I need to go in and grab some additional content. So let me grab what I need, which is my user prompt. So I'm going to come over into Playground. And again, it takes a while to get things set up, but once you get them set up, it's pretty good. So your system prompt is up here. They've changed the layout. Your user prompt is right here. So I'm going to paste some information in here. And this information right here, I'm going to have my chapter story beat, write prose and XYZ name starting with, and then I can tell it to start with my first beat if I want to. And I don't like the way that it stacks on top of each other. That just bugs me. So let me remove the stuff down here. Notice how I have my ending chapter story beats here, and I started up here. Now right here, and again, you might find a process that works for you. This is just what kind of works for me. So I am going to go and grab my chapter. So give me just a minute and see if I can get Atticus to work. I'm going to go and grab this information here. I'm going to grab the first part all the way up to story tone. And then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to put that under my header. And then under story beats, this is where I'm going to put my beats. Now, how many beats do I want to put in there? Do I want to put all 10? Do I only want to put 5 or 4? So we can run it with all of them first if we want to. So let's just plug that in there and we'll see what it does. And I have this little note here. Now let's take a look at our controls. Our max token, I'm going to max that out. I'm going to go to my temperature. What do you think, Cece? You want to start with a 7.7?
That's where you usually go.
And let's start with a 0.5 and we'll work up if we need to. And remember, we're in SKCU. This is the new one. And what's interesting is that this is Ravens, remember? But I'm going to use it for a completely different story. So here I know that my girl's name is Emily.
There's the Blackwood.
Yeah. So I'm going to use Emily. This is Carter. And it's Emily Carter's first person POV, use modern day. So anything else that you want to put here, you can put in here if you want to. Now I could go down. Sometimes whenever it's having a hiccup, I might go and grab my very first beat because like I said, sometimes it really can have a hiccup. So I might go in and grab my first beat and I can put that right here. I don't do it all the time. I just do it whenever I notice that maybe it's not starting where I want it to. And again, it may not start where I want it to, and it can have all kinds of weird glitches. Remember, this is 3.5. So let's run it and see what it does. Now, it looks like nothing is happening, right? And you would think, oh, it should generate here. No, scroll down. And I got to keep on scrolling. There it is. Chapter 1, Emily. The moment I stepped out of the car, a mix of nostalgia and apprehension washed over me. This place holds so many memories, both good and bad, I muttered to myself. Now, I don't necessarily like her muttering. Now, I do have some muttering to herself inside of my fine tune. So some of that will come across here. And I can either keep it that way or I can turn that into some internal thought. Let's take a look at this. I want to see how many words that generated, but let's see how far down that went. And it went down. Oh, it actually finished a sentence. So let's take a look and see how long that is. I'm going to pull up another Word document. Just give me just a moment to grab that because we know Atticus has had a lobotomy or something.
I'm going to say 1250.
Which might be about right for this. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit crazy when I'm looking at this kind of stuff. I like it to be put in a certain format. I'm very much a creature of habit. Okay, so let's take a look at how many words this is. Yep, pretty close to 1,200 words. And I'm estimating that because it's at 2048, my word count should be anywhere, I would say, from, say, 700 to maybe 1,300 words, 1,400 max, because of the length of my chapters. So let's take a look. In general, because it only lets me do 2048 here inside of, let me drag this off. Because it only lets me do 2048 here, and it gave me almost 1,200 words. If it let me do the max, which really should be 4098 or 96, then it would actually give me more of 2,000, 2,200 words. But it's only allowing me to do half.
And that's because of the 3.5.11.
So if I take this content into Rexy and I generate in Rexy, and for people who aren't familiar with that, what is the name of that one? FFCC, Lynn?
Yeah, it's Future Fiction Academy.
Future Fiction Academy. So
Yeah.
Future Fiction Academy has Rexy, and Rexy allows me to take my tokens double this, and then I could get the max amount of generated words. So I'd get double this if I was doing it in Rexy.
Is Rexy also using 3.5?
It will use 3.5 if I use my fine tune in there, remember?
You can create a fine tune in there, can't you?
You can create a fine tune in there, but I can also pull in my fine tunes into Rexy.
Can you do a 4.0 fine tune through Rexy? That's what I'm wondering.
No, because you're still doing the fine tune on your API account. So you're not doing it on, you're only using Rexy as a platform to be able to input your information in.
So it's limited
You are
by what
using,
your account is limited by, right?
so if you have been approved for GPT-4 on your API key through OpenAI, then yeah, you could do it there. Because all you do is you upload and you attach your keys to Rexy, and then you can generate there. So Rexy is the only place that I know of that I can do the 4096 because they don't have a cap on that. Now, OpenAI chose to cap it. If you look at 3.5 without being fine-tuned, you have a larger context window. But for the fine tunes, for whatever reason, they have, rather than keeping it at the 4096, they have taken it to the 2048. That's not a bad thing. That just means that you may have to generate, half of your beats and then go in and generate the other half. And that's actually really easy to do. Instead of putting all 10 beats in there, I would just put 5 and then I would generate. And then I would tell it to continue, give it the last beat or the last prose that was generated, and then tell it to continue and then send it to generate again. And I can mock that as well. But here is the prose that it generated. So let me see. There was thick with the scent of pine and a hint of something magical that I couldn't quite place. As I stood on the front porch, the worn wooden planks creaked beneath my feet. I fished the key out of my pocket and unlocked the door, pushing it open to reveal the dim interior. This is it, I whispered to myself, a shiver running down my spine. It was time to start fresh, to embrace the magic that had always been part of my family's legacy. So this is Raven's voice, 100%. Now she's really subdued compared to Cappy. Cappy gets a little crazy. So as you can see, the air grew cold, the light dimmed as we ventured deeper into the cave. So somewhere from the house to here, she ends up in a cave. So here, later, as I rummaged through the attic, I stumbled upon a dusty old map. So she finds a map, her curiosity piqued, she unfolds it, she finds an X. They go through, she's joined in the attic. Let's see, they're talking about their adventure. They have cryptic clues. So now they reach a secluded part of the property. So it's transitioning them from one location to another. And that's one of the things that I actually really like about the fine tune. Any thoughts, questions on this?
I don't have anything. Anybody?
I want to read it.
I can post it in Discord if y'all want to read this.
Yeah, it looks like that it came up with a really nice flow and a solid voice.
Yeah, I think so too.
But now if you want to see craziness, then we would remove this. And then we would come over and let's see. This is one of the crazy ones.
Yep.
I'm going to clear the history, which is right here. And
You won't be able to get that back that you just did, though.
but that's okay. I have it on a Word document.
That's
And
true.
keep in mind that if you save things, because Cece and I save things all the time, I copied it and put it in a Word document. If I wanted to continue that or add something additional, all I would have to do is come down here and copy I could go in, copy my information, and I could just paste it back in here. And then I would have my chapter again. I just put one of the Cappies here. Let's see what Cappy does. So this is a more subdued Cappy.
But I think
Now,
your prompt is more subdued than you usually prompt when you use Cappy, isn't it?
it is. And so let me show you what happens when I take a completely different prompt. This isn't bad, but keep in mind the prompt that I have in the system prompt will really guide this and make it completely different. So depending on what preset that you're using. Now I am going to save this because I want to save this as Raven. We'll do this as PNR Raven 10. Just so that I have already saved this. We do have a little bit of cursing, but this is subdued. But take a look when I'm going to grab one of my other cappies and let's see, do we want to do this one? And let's take a look at what I have up here. So in this cappy, I am my character information on my system prompt has she's snarky, analytical, gritty, methodical, and filtered speech. So that would give me a completely different prose. And again, this is Cappy. Or if I were to go in and grab, is it this one? If I come up and look at this one, this is erotic romance, forbidden age gap. This one is not even paranormal, but if you look at the content that's inside of this framework, what this one will generate is not going to be real subdued. Let me show you what that would look like. Let me kill this just so that I can show y'all what that would look like. And again, this is that X and Y.
There's Cappy.
Yep. Now, if you put this Cappy in an SFR alien romance environment, wow, she gets completely nuts. So here we go. Let's see what that looks like. And I just put that on here. Sorry. Y'all know the process. Can't look at it. Now, are there any questions, thoughts? I know this has been a long video. I feel like it's been a long video.
It's good information though.
So just
The-
changing your LLM and changing your framework a little bit.
Yeah. And these, where you go into depth and step by step, there's not a lot of these out there because, like I said, I have a crypt partner that's non-technical, and I tried helping her explaining the JSON and how to get things set up in Playground, and she just got frustrated with me because my mind fills in the gaps because I understand things that she doesn't. So I've started to look on YouTube trying to find like a very basic step by step. This is how you do these things. So
Yep.
This is going to help her 100%.
So definitely, I don't want to run crazy Cappy here because I don't know what it's going to show. So I don't want to unleash that one and get in trouble with YouTube. Let's see how many words that was. And keep in mind, this was another LLM. This one generated 1,600 words. This was Cappy. And that's pretty normal for Cappy. Questions? Anything else you would want to see?
Doesn't look like it. Paula, Miss Lynn, y'all got anything?
No, ma'am. It's good stuff. Really good session.
forget what his name is. Luca.
Lucas. And what's her name? Emily.
Now, keep in mind it did not finish, so I can grab that last sentence, put it here, say, please continue where you left off. Now, if I wanted to do another, say, 15 to just under 1,800 words, I would leave this all the way maxed, or I could change this up and do half of that. I could do a fourth of that, but all I need to do is put this here, remind it whose POV it's in, and then tell it to run. And you'll find a list of Keith's works. So it continues where it left off. Now, keep in mind, if you don't have enough inside of this second run, if there's not enough in the beats to sustain it, you'll get looping.
Can we look at your usage for the generated text versus?
Sure can. What was that on? 1707, I believe. And we'll take a look at what we have done. Let me grab this. And let's go down here. We know that it picked up on right here. So let's see how many words that was. Now, I hate that it does this. So one of the ways to get rid of that is going to be this. Now, sometimes you may not want to do a replace all. I don't have any seam breaks in here that I need to be careful of. But if I had seam breaks that were just a line in between, then I would not want to do this because it's going to take out all of the extra spaces. See, take out 51 of them. And there you have it. Let's go in and turn that back here. Make sure we take out our extra space. And voila, we're done. So let's see how many words total that was. So we have, let's see, I'm going to write these down. We have 3325 on this one. We have on the other one, let's see how many words we have on this one. Make sure I have the right one. Yep. So on this one, we have a total of 1169. And then our prompt, let's see how much our prompt is. I'm going to grab both of those because remember, one of them was like 3,000 words, I think, but we want both prompts. So let's take a look at everything in this cell. I'm going to paste that into a Word document. And then I'm going to grab the user prompt. And I have the system prompt here. I have the user prompt here. And let's see how much of a word count that is. That is, on this one, it's 2207. But let's go back and look at, we also have the other one. Now we ran this twice, so that is ×2 on the 22. And then we had a generation under Raven. And under Raven, we had, let's see, this system prompt is, sorry guys, I want to give y'all an accurate reading on those. Open. Oh, that's weird. I have it open somewhere. There it is. Okay, so we have this one. And let me get the end user prompt. And so I just want y'all to have a clear picture. Okay, so this one, the end user or the system prompt was at 26. Okay, so let's add the end user to that one also. And that gave us 3132. So let me add those up. And then we'll take a look at the cost. Now, which platforms do you currently use?
What do you mean?
The platforms that you like to use?
Like pseudo write or
Oh,
novel?
yeah, it's just just right now, just pseudo write and Playground. And I've only been doing this less than 3 months, I think.
Nice.
Otherwise it's just, I've just been writing traditionally.
So all of those totals together came to 12,040 words. So let's see what our usage was. Let's go over and look at our usage. I'm going to refresh. Remember, we were at 1702. There you go. We're at 1702, so 15 cents for 12,040 words. And keep in mind that I am counting the input and the output because you're charged for both.
Right.
So I'm looking at my input that I had to send off, which one of those was 32 or 3,325. And then the other one I sent off twice at 2,207. So that would be 4,414 plus the 3,325. Those were both what was my input. And then the rest of that totaling the 12,000 was my output. So yeah, 15 cents. Is that insane?
It is. It really is. But it's awesome.
Yeah.
It is. They get you on the fine tunes, but luckily the fine tunes don't have to be run all the time. You get yourself a good fine tune and keep it. You roll with that all the time.
Yeah. This May 1st at $1.66, that was 100,000 word manuscript. that I
Now,
generated on that day.
you run your fine tune, and as you showed us, you can customize it for different genres.
Oh, 100%.
So you don't run a fine tune for your science fiction romance and then run another one for your PNR, and then you just basically let it find your voice, and then you can customize it to whatever genre, style, and tone you want for
Right. It's Cece and I were playing around and looking at the different fine tunes that we did, and we've really enjoyed Cappy. And Cappy is so versatile and so up in your face, depending on the genre and depending on the type of prompt that you are putting in the system prompt. But if you take a look at this, Cappy, I have in contemporary romance, harem lit. Cappy is also doing medical mystery, a psychological woman's fiction, paranormal woman fiction is Cappy. Then we have Hellwise doing an academy, and Hellwise is urban fantasy. Is that urban fantasy academy, Cece?
No, she's just strict urban fantasy.
Urban fantasy.
No
And then I
academy.
have, and that's just Hellwise by herself, but then but she does a really good academy, which was really crazy. And then I have Sydney. I have a Sydney and a Sydney cap. Now, Sydney is a steamy SFR, alien romance. Now, Sydney does pretty good by herself, but I actually prefer the Sydney cap, which is a combination of that SFR and the Cappy. And we put them together, and man, some of those combinations are just out of this world. Like Felicity, she's a little crazy, so I put Felicity and Cappy together. We have a Capwise, which is Cappy and Hellwise. We have Polly. Polly is like 5 different novels along with Cappy together. Mary is a thriller. So we have different ones, and we can funnel them in and out of different areas. Does that
Gotcha.
help?
So, yeah, I understand it now. It's like my mind's spinning. So when you create the different LLMs based on your body of work separated, right? So Cappy was trained on things that were separate from what Raven was trained on. Okay, gotcha.
So Polly has 5 different books that we did a fine tune on. And so Polly, whenever I went in here to do an academy, I had to tone it down. And if you notice here, I said, but no sexual acts. You can build sexual tension, but no sexual acts. That's because it just wanted to have everybody having sex. And I'm like, no, we can't have that in this academy. So I did have some of this is similar to what you've seen before. And if I scroll up and you see my character list and I keep going and you take a look at, I've got my beats, but right here, here's my prose for Polly.
Okay, gotcha.
It just depends on who you're looking for.
Okay, so that's interesting. Because I have some short stories out to some publishers, online publishers. And if I took those short stories, fine tune based on my existing voice, and then I would have my own LLM to
Yes.
do my bidding, basically.
How many words are your short stories?
It depends depends on where I submitted. Generally, I'm looking anywhere between 4 to 8, depending on the target market.
Are you saying 4,000 to 8,000 words?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
flash fiction, shorts, things like that.
Okay, then that's not a bad thing now, but you would have to decide, are you going to fine tune per short story, like how I fine tune the whole book? And so all 31 chapters have the same information from column A and B all the way down 31 lines? Or are you going to fine tune each one, you're going to take it and run steps 1 through 6 on each individual short story. So you have to make a
Right.
decision how you want to do that. Are you going to put all of the short stories together and then have it run something on all of them by default? Now, I did that. Amelia writes poetry. And so we tried out the 6 steps with Amelia's poetry book. And it was interesting because it broke it down to show the common theme among all 130 poems. But then it also broke it down to show some very specific things from some of the different poems that it pinpointed. And we were able to do a fine tune specifically on her poetry book and her voice as a whole, but she can also do a fine tune on each poem individually. So you have to determine what kind of fine tune you want to make.
Yeah, I think my brain is wanting to separate it according to genre.
Mhm.
That's what it just wants to do that. So that's
Now
probably what I'll start with.
So if you put multiple of those short stories in one fine tune, then know that it would be like what we did here with Polly. And with Polly, for each one of the books, we fine tuned that book specifically. And then for book 2, we fine tuned that information for that book. We pulled up steps 1 through 6 for each one of those books.
Okay.
So you'd want to
individual.
do the same thing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thoughts, questions? We good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I missing anything, Cece?
Nothing I can think of. We will always come back and explore this and do different things with it, but I don't think you've missed anything.
Cool.
Miss Lynn, what are you thinking?
I don't know what else you would cover. I think you did a very good, thorough job.
Yeah, I agree. Shall I wrap us up?
Wrap us up and take us away.
Okay, thanks for joining us, everybody. Please don't hesitate to like us, like it, ring a bell, subscribe. Also, just a little side note, something we never say, but will this time. If you're a developer or you know something about this stuff and think you can enhance our process or give us some information that we don't have because we're not developers, please reach out to us on the YouTube channel and let us know so we can pick your brain. And that's all we have. Thanks a lot for attending, and y'all have a great one.